In this video, we're going to quickly look over how you can upload your programming assignments to Gradescope. So the first step is navigating to gradescope.ca. Make sure you are going to the .ca version and not .com. It does have to be .ca to be able to log in. Then click Login, and don't use your email and password here. Instead, click on School Credentials. Navigate to Western, and then input your Western username and password, same ones you used to log into Brightspace. After you log in, you'll see the course dashboard. So the course dashboard displays all of the different courses you're taking with Gradescope this term, as well as some past courses that you've taken in previous terms. If you're just taking CS1026, you'll just see that course. In any case, since this is CS1026, make sure you click on that course. Now on this dashboard here, you'll see all the different assignments. Now, depending on what section you're in, you might see different assignments here, but you should all see the main programming assignments, like Assignment 1, Assignment 2, Assignment 3, and so on. So make sure you click on the assignment that you're interested in submitting. In this case, let's say it's Assignment 1. And when you do that, you'll get this little pop-up. And it's asking you to upload your Python files. So it doesn't want a zip folder, it doesn't want any project folder, it just wants the .py files. Now we could click here and navigate to them on our computer, or we could drop them in. That's probably the easiest way. So what I recommend doing is put your PyCharm IDE on one half of the screen, and then put Gradescope on the other half. You can see your different files in the IDE. Select the ones you want. In this case, I'm holding down the Control key to select them all, and then drag them over to Gradescope like so. And you can see that they're all listed here. And when we're ready to submit, hit Upload. And then hit Close. And you'll see that the autograder is now running. We'll make that full screen. The autograder might take a few minutes to run, and when it finishes, you'll get a report that looks like this. So depending on which assignment it is, the report will be a little bit different, but each test will have a different entry on the right-hand side here, and it will tell you which ones have passed. The green ones have passed, the red ones have failed. These are all worth different amount of points. And when we click on a test, it gives us some feedback. So in this case, we can say it's testing weather.py with these inputs. So we have a few different inputs here. These might be things coming in standard input, but for later assignments, it might be things like file inputs or even function calls. And then here we see the expected output. This is the output that the autograder expects your program to output for these values. Down here, we can see the output of your program. Now, one thing to note are these sort of input lines. When you do an input prompt in Python and give that prompt to the user, the autograder sort of just collapses that all onto one line, and it doesn't show the inputs it's giving. The inputs are shown up here, they're not shown down here. So you can sort of ignore that line. What is important are the outputs that your program's giving. If they match exactly, the autograder passes the test. If they're different, then you fail the test. So if it looks like you're getting the right values, but you're still failing, make sure that you've spelt everything correctly. There's no differences in spacing, capitalization, anything like that. Everything has to be exactly the same. But of course, also mainly check that the values are correct for this input. Now, there will be some other types of tests shown, things like your style check or your comments check. These ones aren't worth any points, but they give you some tips that you should look at these things because your code will also be reviewed by a human, one of the teaching assistants for the course. And they'll do things like judge your style and the comments that you're put in. So the comment check is just going to check that you have comments in your code. It doesn't actually read or understand the comments. That's what the teaching assistant will do. If you're failing the comments check, that means at least one of your files doesn't have comments in it. Every single one of your files needs to have a header comment, as well as the other comments described in the assignment. Now the style check's a bit different. The style check is very strict, far stricter than what the teaching assistant will be, but it shows you in any cases where your style is not matching the PEP 8 guidelines. That's the official guidelines for Python style. Style errors don't mean that your program isn't working correctly, or it's not running, or it's crashing. They mean that you've just written it in improper style. So nothing that affects the working of the program, things that affect people's ability to read it or not following the style. You can sort of think of this like how when you write an essay in English class, you might write that in APA style. Even if you don't follow APA style, you still communicate your ideas, but the problem is you're not following the official style. So look for these and try to correct them. Usually they're very simple things. For example, in this case, they're missing some white space after a comma, and these give you a hint at what line they're on. So it tells you the program it's in, or weather.py in this case, and the line. So this is around line 11. So you should look and see if there's an area where you did not put a space after a comma. The other common one are having lines too long. The style guide does say that certain lines can't be too far over a certain length. The TAs won't be too strict about that if there's a good reason to go over the length. Like maybe it actually would make the code look worse if it was broken down into multiple lines, but you shouldn't have things like your whole program on one line or that whole header comment on one line. That wouldn't be good. That would make it hard to read. Style check is all going to be about, is your code easy to read? Is it easy to understand? So there are things that the assignment will talk about in the non-functional specification. Make sure you read the non-functional specification part because it will explain what the TA is going to be looking for. Another common style error is not having a new line at the end of the file. In any case, if you've done this and you're trying to improve your code and you want to resubmit, you just click this resubmit button here, and then you drag and drop the files in again. You can resubmit any number of times up to the due date. But if you submit after the due date, you will start incurring a late penalty. So make sure that you do all your resubmissions before the due date. And this is great because it allows you to work through any errors. So if some of these other more important tests were failing that are worth points, you should work through them until they're all passing. Remember, the TA isn't going to be grading these tests. They have their own set of criteria to grade. So make sure all those tests are passing because the TA isn't going to give you points back on the autograded tests. So it is up to you to make sure they do pass on both your local computer and on Gradescope. It's not enough that they just pass on your computer. They also have to be passing on Gradescope. If you do want to see your code, you can click the code button, and sometimes there'll be some tips and hints at the top that you should make sure that you read, especially if you're running into issues. So that's all I have for you in this video, just some instructions on how to upload your code. If you are running into issues, feel free to post on the course forums, attend a TA consulting session, or contact one of your instructors. Thank you for watching, and have a great day.